That brings us to item 18, which is response to July 2nd, 2012 grand jury report. Pursuant to California law, the City Council is requested to authorize for submittal to the presiding judge of the Orange County Superior Court a response to the July 2nd Orange County grand jury report entitled "The Use of Government Influence on a Private Educational Institution." Mr. Kendig, I did ask you and Mr. Parker to come back with some information and recommendations and a letter, which you have done. Mr. Kendig, could you give us a little information on that, please?
A brief overview. There is a staff report, as you noted, in front of you, and as that staff report notes, the California Penal Code requires the city, specifically the City Council, to respond to the grand jury's findings and recommendations. As also noted in the staff report, the response has to conform to certain requirements, such as agreeing or disagreeing with findings and reporting on whether each of the recommendations will be implemented, for instance. There is a proposed letter attached. It's attached as attachment 2 to the staff report. The letter can be modified or rewritten at the council's direction, or adopted as written. That's the council's discretion. As written, if the letter was adopted, the letter would observe that the grand jury report doesn't include the evidence or testimony that the grand jury relied upon in reaching its conclusions, so it's difficult to draw conclusions about what happened or who said what, that sort of thing. The letter also would observe that there are certain First Amendment constraints on the city about, in the situation described in the report, individuals talking with public agencies and universities. And so it would observe those things. The recommendation is crafted in terms of a series of options. There, I believe it's 6 options laid out there. Any one of those 6 could be adopted, provided the action taken has to include a response to the grand jury's findings and recommendations. As long as that base is covered, then any of the other options could be pursued as well, or none of them. The only statutory requirement is that a response be provided to the grand jury. Okay. So basically we are tasked to create a response for the grand jury, and that's really our sole purpose on this particular item in order to do that. And the letter is crafted, basically has states First Amendment protections for council members. They have First Amendment rights just like everyone else does. Also looking at evidentiary. We don't have the evidentiary information that the grand jury is basing this report on. And also looking at that, the individuals that were mentioned in this report certainly did things not with council direction or staff direction. So, and so there is little or no knowledge in regards to city staff on this particular information. So that's kind of the gist of it on the response. I will say a couple of quick things that...
can I go first?
When I'm done.
Point of order.
Well, let me finish my sentences, if you would, please. Thank you. Basically, we're looking at definitely free speech, that council members do have free speech.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Can you let me finish
No,
what I'm
actually,
saying,
a point of order. You have to vote on a point of order.
Can
I don't have to.
Please quit talking over me.
I'm not talking
okay?
over you. It's a point of order, which means you're supposed to open
Councilmember
up to the floor.
I will not let you bully me.
I'm not
okay?
bullying you. I'm asking for a point of order.
So please let me finish
You're not
my
supposed to
statement.
speak until we vote on the point of order.
Finish my sentence.
Sentence only. You're not allowed to speak on the item first.
Well, again, I won't let you bully me.
Point of order.
Again, just reviewing what we've talked about, we're looking at free speech protections from the council member, which is part of the letter, and we're also looking at lack of evidentiary information. Okay. That being said, I guess you're anxious to speak, so Councilmember Gavello.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So my motion is as follows. On Penal Code Section 93.3.05A, that we go with 1, the respondent agrees with the finding. on Penal Code Section 933.05B, that we take action number 2. The recommendation has yet not been implemented, but will be implemented in the future with a time frame for implementation. In addition, to censure Jerry Amante at a hearing at the next council meeting. In addition, to remove Jerry Amante from all his current paid committees. That is my motion.
Okay. There's a motion.
I will second it just for purposes of discussion.
Okay. Mr. Amante, you have any comment?
Well, I have a number of comments, but I'm certainly interested in hearing the prosecutrix lay out her case.
Okay. So,
To the city attorney.
Yes. Actually, there was a rule recently adopted by the FPPC that allows those that are nominated to nominated to paid committees to participate in the vote, provided that the local agency posts what's called a Form 806. This was adopted within the past 3 months.
I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I just
Couldn't hear
know.
me? Okay, I'll speak up then. The FPPC recently, within the past 3 months, adopted a new regulation that allows individuals who are nominated to paid committees to vote on their nomination to those paid committees. It's a recently adopted regulation of the FPPC. It's a change in what the rule had been according to the FPPC. And the only requirement to that is that a Form 806 has to be posted on the city's website shortly after the action is taken. So it's a new rule.
That's not the case, though. What we have here is we always recuse ourselves if there's a financial gain or loss to us personally. And Mr. Monte has a personal gain and loss on this, so shouldn't it be safe to say he has to recuse himself as we discuss this item?
Well, the only rule that might have precluded him before was the one that said that when one is appointed to a paid position, a paid authority or other agency, that the individual had to recuse himself or herself from the decision whether to appoint himself or herself to that position. That rule has recently changed within the past 3 months. I was just researching it now. And that rule no longer precludes the individual from participating in that discussion.
Okay.
so he can, basically. I'd like to offer a substitute motion. Substitute motion is moving the recommended letter as is, as a response to the grand jury.
Second.
Okay. We have a substitute motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Gomez.
This report concerns me, and I agree. There's some things that are in this report that I don't feel we have enough information.
Just kind of weigh in a little bit here. To be frank, I mean, whether or not we like what was said, free speech is protected. It's protected by the federal Constitution and by the state.
And I'm agreeing with that.
And well, let me continue. It's sacrosanct. It is where a city council member can discuss ideas, can discuss politics, can discuss anything. And what, in my view, this is kind of political correctness run amok. And what you're asking us to do, frankly, is to look into a situation where, if you extrapolate it, we're suppressing free speech. And if we don't like what's said, we don't like what's said. But as a free speech issue, a council member should be able to talk to people. I mean, whether or not they're with a university, not with a university, whether they're with a business group, whomever, they should, want to express their opinion, want to express their views. They should be able to do that freely. I mean, it's a free country, and we're here to express free speech, and everyone has it. And this is a perfect example here. And I think that, if we start to retard that and we start to punish free speech, I think we're moving in the direction of suppressing it. So, Councilmember Amante.
Through the chair, Mr. Mayor. Look, I was one of the 4 people who was in the room and has had their meeting not only misinterpreted but really skewed for a lot of political reasons. and written in what I think is one of the most poorly written, and that's really hard to do, grand jury reports that I've ever read. This is full of innuendo and inference and appearance rather than any evidence or any fact. So for anyone to get amped up about it, they have to have not read the words of the grand jury itself, where they say things like, it appeared that the city council persons, if by express statement or by implication the following occurred. It appears that the university did the following. None of it backed by anything. So let's go to the words of those who were present. Let's take the words of Jim Doty, who was the person that Councilman Songstad and I went to see along with Lacey Kelly for a variety of reasons, having nothing in some cases to do with Professor Smoller or what was going on in the election in Laguna Niguel that year back in 2010. This was written about by Terry Sforza in the Register, widely reported, available to anybody who wants to go read her work in an article called Doty Tells All and Flap Over City Compensation Survey, written August 3rd, 2010. And she writes that there's, allegations by Kogerman that there were behind-the-scenes efforts by officials of an organization. By the way, that organization, the League of Cities, never took a vote to have anybody do anything. It was 3 individuals who went to have a meeting. And then she says, so there was a meeting. Yes, Doty says there was a meeting, but Smoller's head is still on his shoulders, and there it shall remain. Smoller, the director of Bramman's graduate program of public administration, is a tenured and well-respected member of the faculty. His job is not in jeopardy, and one of Doty's main reactions to the city manager compensation report, this is the Kogerman report, was that these guys are underpaid for all the abuse they have to put up with, a sentiment that we have heard before. I'm an innocent bystander, Doty says. He recounts the story, and here's how it unfolds in his own words. And here are President Doty's own words about the meeting that Ms. Kogerman is so stunned over that the grand jury reported on. I see this report, and I read it, and I think it's a good thing that our students are doing this kind of useful public service work, gathering data that helps inform the public and leads to more informed decision-making as to what they should pay city managers. It's not unlike what I do at our Center for Economic Research. Now, I was asked if I would meet with 3 representatives from the Orange County chapter of the League. I'm not going to mention names. They have been kept confidential in the meeting, but of course everyone knows who they are. It's Alan and I and Lacey. They did not demand Fred Smoller's head, nothing like that. The gist is, Jim, how much do you know about this report? And I said, just what I read in the papers. And they said they wanted to alert me to the fact that it was not written by Chapman students, but by Ms. Kogerman. I said, really? It says the students wrote it. And they said, no, she wrote it. And I said, let me check into it. They groused about the data and the validity of the data and that it was poorly done and poorly written and that the interpretations were wrong. I asked for a copy of the actual report and I got one from Brandman, and lo and behold, it has the students who wrote the report on the cover. Now, I've never spoken with Fred about this. We've just communicated by email. I emailed Fred, quote, I met with representatives of the League and they claimed that it was not written by the students, but I have it in front of me and it says it was the students and that Kogerman wrote a foreword. The League had no problem with the students being involved, and I have no problem with them working on a campaign for their internship. It's a valuable experience. I wasn't concerned about that, but the authorship is a big deal. So Fred emailed back that he made it clear on his blog that Kogerman wrote the report and that it was not a Chapman product. And I wrote back, gee, I'm aghast. I'm outraged. How could she put our student's name on the cover? Something, by the way, the grand jury, for reasons unknown to me and certainly to Mr. Stongstad, they chose to ignore the real issue of ethical problems with attributing to students who didn't do the work that was done by a candidate for her own benefit. So he says, I'm aghast, I'm outraged. How could she put our student's name on the cover and Brandman as part of the Chapman University system? It seemed like it was intentionally done to give more credibility and more academic weight to the report. He said, yeah, I'm upset about it too. This is Smoller. But they did a good job gathering the information. Since my issue is not with the students doing it, but with the authorship, I asked if he would think about sending an official letter stating it wasn't written by Brandman students and it was unethical to give that impression. I didn't demand, I just suggested. He didn't respond to that, but he did send a letter to the Register, and he'd copied me on that saying that this was not a Chapman report. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the case is closed. So what did Professor Smoller write to the paper at the suggestion of President Doty? The following: Dear Editor, also published in the newspaper, go find it.